Welcome to No Free Lunch, South Africa's freshest business podcast. And today we are talking FinTech. And in studio, I've got Jonathan Thomson with me from Kazang. Jonathan is the executive head of commercial at Kazang, having previously studied at Stellies, actually studying law and then pivoting to FinTech. But Jonathan, welcome to No Free Lunch.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Really excited to be here.
And today we're talking a bit about something that I think flies under the radar for most of the time in South African business, and that's more of the informal sector in the Tavern economy. And Jonathan's company, Kazang, has come up with some solutions for the Tavern industry that has many challenges, much like the entire informal trading sector that is in this country, in South Africa, estimated to be around about R1 trillion, as I understand it. That's a large amount of money, and seemingly a lot of that happens in cash. Do you want to chat to us a bit about that and how you see that economy and how you see that economy evolving?
Yeah, I mean, a trillion really might be the right number. You know, when you get into trade, into some of the kind of informal township economies, being someone not from that kind of world, it was really eye-opening. My first couple of years spent with the teams in Kazang, learning the business, learning the trade, understanding the environments. It's just, you know, the real economy there it's massive, it's moving, and it's really not being tracked all that much either as well. So the amount of cash moving is really, really an astounding thing that you know, businesses like ours have gotten a unique chance to start to view those transactions and those volumes just by virtue of bringing kind of technology to the places where it's never really been before. So yeah, it's been an astounding journey, and understanding and seeing that it's not going anywhere. You know, in fact, it's increasing and it's moving more and more. And thankfully, there's a lot of these businesses that are getting smarter about how they're doing it.
And the reason for the cash still underlying it seems almost incomprehensible that there's that amount of cash lying around in the informal economy for a number of reasons. One of them obviously being security, and that must be an issue in that informal sector and in the tavern sector. And the other one is that amount of cash, first of all, you're not earning any form of interest or interest growth on that cash. Secondly, then making payments. If you're making large payments, that makes it pretty difficult. You want to talk to us a bit about those challenges and what your company is doing to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, Greg, I think the usage of cash in the kind of informal economies, at the end of the day, is a consumer behavior challenge. So your everyday person in the township has large trust issues with kind of your traditional financial sector. For a number of reasons. One might just be kind of education. How do these things work? You know, how should I be transacting in a way versus what I'm used to? And, you know, people don't like to change their behavior easily. And the second is kind of, you talk about risk, and cash is risky, but for a lot of people, digital transactions can seem risky. You know, cash in the hand is cash that I have. No one can take it away from me except by force. But on a bank card or in an app, you know, that could go to zero tomorrow. And a lot of the consumers feel like that's just a risk they can't take. Who do they recourse? Suddenly they're in a call center. So, you know, it's a big part of trust from a consumer perspective. But once the presence of card transactions as an option becomes more and more prevalent, more and more people become comfortable with it. You know, provided that everywhere you go can take a card transaction, you're probably more likely to carry your card around. And that's something that the formal market saw obviously many years ago, but the informal market has started to really see pick up. And so when you talk about security risk for merchants, it's a huge uplift in that, you know, not having to take 50 grand in cash over the space of a trading week. Now that's, you know, maybe 10 grand in cash and 40 grand in card transactions. So there's a huge safety improvement for consumers and for merchants and for the whole value chain for these FMCG liquor industries who are not having to have the burden of managing all this cash.
And tell me from a perspective of who's driving this cash-driven transactions. Is it the consumer driving it, or is it business driving it? Because on the other hand, there's a lot of maybe assumptions made that it is businesses that avoid in things like tax and VAT and that sort of thing. Where is this being driven from, and do you see that changing?
I believe for the most part it's consumer driven, Greg. I think what we found is that merchants that understand that card as a spend mechanism increases the spend at their store rather than decreases. It increases the likelihood that a customer is going to walk in and purchase rather than decreases. And they generally then start to accept that as a tender mechanism. And so I think that it's mostly consumer driven. Some merchants are run away from the fees or are mistrusting of the financial system, like I'd mentioned. But once you've built this relationship with them and they can trust your people and your brand and your product, then the merchant's behavior definitely changes, and a lot of them are quite happy to move digital.
That's very interesting. And from a perspective of businesses, your company does way more than just offer a payment solution. You have a point of sale, you have a stock control mechanism. Talk to us about those different elements and how that's making a difference in those small businesses.
Yeah, look, I think the key to us being where we are today and a lot of the success we've had is the ability for us to add a new product there, to innovate a little bit over there. I mean, our history was with payphones. We used to put payphones in little spaza shops in the townships, and as kind of technology evolved and consumer behavior evolved, now you're selling an airtime voucher or a prepaid airtime voucher, and then you're selling a prepaid electricity voucher. And before you know it, a couple of years later, we've got around 45 different value-added service product partners, anywhere from OTT voucher solutions, easy pay bill payments, and all of the networks. So we've really kind of gone and adapted with change, and thankfully been able to add more products onto the basket. And that means your economies of scale for getting a device in store is better because you're offering the merchant more solutions. But more importantly, that you're more important to his business. Like you said, you're touching on a number of his different challenges, and that really helps to build kind of the trust and the utilization and all of the different things that you have. And then there's a really, really helpful flywheel that just makes you more and more ingrained in their business. So you're absolutely right. We take a card transaction for the merchant, provide him a point of sale device to help him ring up all of his sales, keep track of his stock, allow him digital payment mechanisms. He can settle an invoice for a supplier, top up at his local wholesaler using our solution, access to credit, etc. All of these things make a really tight moat around a specific merchant and a specific segment of merchants that our team thankfully has been able to leverage quite successfully.
Yes, I have indeed. And it's quite a big, just the tavern industry is quite a big economy, estimated to be about 40 to 60 billion rand in South Africa. So quite a big market. How much of that market has Kazang managed to corner for itself?
In the tavern industry, we're at about 30% market share. We've got 11,000 registered, licensed liquor outlets that's often on consumption using the platform. So yeah, we've seen some really, really strong growth in the last 12 months. We bought a company called Touchsides, which we absorbed into our business operations, that they had a very considerable point of sale base, which we then leveraged all of our other services on top of. So I think if we had to put a number on it, 30 to 33% of the licensed taverns out there are quote unquote Kazang merchants. And that number is growing every single month by a couple of hundred sites.
That's very impressive. So on that perspective, you've also added things like a wallet, a digital wallet. So in essence, the company or the owner of the business doesn't need to have a bank account. They could actually just keep their funds in their wallet and then literally transact from that wallet, as you said, make payments and so on. Tell us a bit about the wallet, and also, is that interest bearing?
Yeah, great question. I can answer the first one. It's not an interest-bearing wallet. You come up into a whole bunch of regulatory stuff if you start to kind of act like a bank account. But the wallet for us is really a key, unique selling point. It's something that your standard card company doesn't have, and why it really works so well in the traditional market, cash-based, is that it's instant. It's available right away, and it's very visual. You've taken a card transaction at a normal bank speed point. You kind of trust the bank that it's going to be in your bank account next day or in a couple of days. Whereas ours, the guy taps the card and that money is available right there on the device or on his app to use. And so we've really gotten over that trust barrier because it's easy to see. I put the machine down and I do a tap and you see the money there available. So that helps us to overcome that trust barrier quite well. But also it means that money is usable. So you're an outlet owner, you've had a big Friday night, you've done a whole bunch of swipes. For a traditional banking device, you're probably going to have to wait a couple of days before you get access to those funds. Whereas with us, right then and there, it's available. So you get outlet owner, gets in a bakkie, she drives across to a mass mart or an ultra liquor store, for example, reshops, restocks, has a full fridge for that Saturday afternoon, rinse repeats on Sunday. So that's really been a key driver for us and how we've kind of penetrated these markets. And the merchants are really kind of grateful that we provide that access to their funds right away and allow them to fully stock all over the weekend.
And tell me, with a service like that, I'm assuming that the beauty about this type of system is that it's scalable beyond South African borders. Because once you've got a platform working like that, you could literally institute it anywhere. I'm assuming you have to apply for some sort of financial license to operate as you do. But the system itself then should be easily adaptable for any market. Any plans to, you got any plans to expand beyond the South African borders?
Yeah, so we actually have operations in Namibia, Botswana, and Zambia today. We are a really strong player in those markets, if not the market leader in each one of them individually. And all of them have different unique characteristics that make some products really more important than others in those countries. And so, you have to be really skeptical of just taking what works here and taking it elsewhere, because that doesn't always work out. But thankfully, our in-country teams and international teams are really close to the ground and help to inform what we're doing there. So to answer your question, yep, we're in SADC and we have expansion plans absolutely in the next couple of years.
Fantastic. So IPO coming down the road?
Funny you say that we are actually part of a listed entity already at Lasaka Technologies. That's our parent company, our big brother up there in Rosebank. They are listed on the JSE and on the NASDAQ. That comes with obviously a whole bunch of benefits and trust, and obviously a whole bunch of challenges from a compliance and audit perspective. But thankfully, we seem to be striking a balance there. So if you guys are interested in Kazang or the Kazang story, there are shares available.
I look forward to hearing you about how you're expanding elsewhere in Africa. Africa certainly does need a lot more of these solutions. There's such a big informal market out there in Africa, and payments have been notoriously a big issue, and receiving payments and sending payments. And these type of services are really assisting these smaller businesses in overcoming the challenges. So salute to you guys, and I wish you everything of the best going forward.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. And thanks for the time.